It is a pleasure to meet you at this opportunity to comment on United States President State of the Union made yesterday. It is very important to hear a number of challenges His Honor the President addressed on the State of the Union. But there are a number of essential things, not today or not yesterday, not even in the past 2 decades. The economy structure needs an urgent enhancement. Any challenge or any objectives or any goals set by the federal government or state government or cities governments or even businesses expect much better financial structure. The economy financial structure needs much of attention, urgent attention. The economy works on only 2% of the entire financial tools of the economy. Very limited financial network to maintain the financial markets and the commodities markets. The financial services has huge limitations. It needs to get fixed through specific reading to the economy. The financial authorities, they have much of obligations to maintain. FDIC take over financial institutions. It gives much of critique. The function of the Federal Reserve District needs more attention. And the Treasury Department. The main problem is to increase revenues. Talk about federal budget deficit cuts. Well, economy much bigger to place any cuts. Economy is subject to huge growth on revenues and multiply today gross domestic product. Availability tells much of growth. Anybody cannot even imagine. If I talk or if I refer to an immediate or within 24 hours, $26 trillion. The entire gross domestic product is 15.6. I am referring to an immediate or within 24 hours, $26 trillion only on the financial industry of the United States economy. It means U.S. economy is huge, much bigger than anybody can imagine. And this is just the financial industry. The economy structure has more than 226 main and derivative industries, which includes the financial industry. The financial services, which includes Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and the Federal Home Loan Banks on government-sponsored enterprises. Not just that, the Act gives them a final say on what described by secondary markets on the financial services. It is just a derivative industry. Mortgage investment industry, this is a derivative industry from the financial industry. I'm not talking about much bigger authorities to those government-sponsored enterprises, but I'm talking about the financial structure of the economy. It does not specify. Their main function is specified, but cannot give a solution. As I mentioned several times, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, $8 trillion debt, which includes debt interest in a business session. It can be cleared with full details. Any moment, any time, His Honor is ready to hear about it in written or in verbal. The financial authorities in the United States Senate and or House of Representatives, they can get those briefs. But business is business. To clear an entire $8 trillion debt, service charge, but with 100% accuracy and 100% satisfaction, solution is ready. But that's just an example. What the challenge His Honor addressed yesterday on the State of the Union it requires much better financial structure of the economy. Within the effort, or those efforts, economy, data information economy, that is included on 18 hours of work between each state and the federal government. It needs an urgent attention. The entire economy needs structure, a base structure to on what concerns data and information economy. This is another chapter, but it does facilitate any kind of solutions. It does not relate to $26 trillion growth solution. It does not relate to $200 trillion growth solutions. Relates to industries development, which relates to trade, import and export transformation. And I heard His Honor refer to trade with Europe. Much of things needs to get done on automatic communication. Those kind of trade, import and export reflects not just with Europe but with the entire world. The United States has the trade connected with more than 124 countries. Any progress, any growth on United States trade reflects on them, and trade, import and export transformations within industrial development brings much of increase to importers and exporters growth, which means the entire trade. Chamber of Commerce needs more attention. Their function could get much better, but the financial structure of the economy needs an immediate or urgent attention. It does improve when it does get enhanced. It does improve the much bigger range, which gets to Basel Accords to give other financial institutions in other countries, either national banks or central banks or the main institutions that assign on the financial structure of each country. It could get improved according to each country availability, and it takes much better direction for the world economy. And world economy at this moment, the gross domestic product, or world gross domestic product, entitled to an increase from $78 trillion, about $78 trillion, to $400 trillion, multiplied several times. It does not include the United States of America, which means number of countries they could get a few trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, millions of dollars. Any geographical area entitled to more growth, but with more enhancement on the financial structure. United States is different. If the U.S. economy entitled to an immediate $26 trillion on just financial industry, which means a number of fewer things needs to be made by the financial authorities, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury Department. It doesn't take other than a few minutes it takes fewer hours to understand it, to maintain it, and it becomes ready, and it within 24 hours much good information becomes available. The main frame starts with the factors of production, how it works more efficient to generate much of growth. And what concerns the financial structure, it does relate to entire factors of production, but it does relate without getting in details, because business is business, and I know and understand United States federal government contracts with number of companies, and it pays billions of dollars every year on consulting, which means when I'm talking about worth much, and years ready to collect anything and get paid for but it is number of things, step after another, step after another. It doesn't work to collect part of it without the entire levels of the solutions, which works takes not that much. It works very fast, and it brings result very fast. The The financial structure needs an extra effort to connect the national level with the state level, with cities level, with businesses level. Growth levels between 4 to 6 growth levels to back geographical areas, businesses at any financial difficulties. It is not available. More financial networks. It is not available. More financial tools. It is not available. The simple example. The president set a number of challenges, but and objectives to maintain. It is good, but it does require a number of things. Yesterday, ING mentioned 2,400 cuts on their work. It followed the Citigroup. Citigroup made 1,100 cuts with much more possibility to focus much more on their growth objectives, which means there is a gap between their revenues and their expenditure. It is the Federal Reserve districts, it is the Treasury Department responsibility and the financial authorities in Congress to set more effort to maintain the financial structure that defines the economy. U.S. economy is much bigger than anybody can imagine, and it's qualified to generate much of growth. This is just an example. $26 trillion on financial industry within 24 hours becomes available. It is almost double the gross domestic product. This is the economics. Economics is a field of creativity. Thinkers, they read availabilities, they maintain necessary steps to get things done according to the economy availabilities. If it's an advanced economy, if it's an emerging economy, if it's an developing economy. And the most important, I agree, bigger government doesn't help. It needs small government, but the major cuts that noticed on cities, on states and federal government, not because of the reviewing not reviewing the less government, much better and more efficient than a bigger government. No, it is not. It does relate to the gaps between revenues and expenditure. The allocated funds for each department or government agency or any institutions related to federal or state or cities, they are on financial pressure. They have obligations more than their budget takes, and for that reason they places those cuts, not because of small government, which reflects on the cost of the goods and services. It comes from federal government, or it comes from state government, or it comes from cities, or the reflection on businesses. The final result, more cost on the goods and services. Each unit, it costs much more, and it subjects to more taxes after physical cliff and anything similar to physical cliff to meet the financial gaps between revenues and expenditure, which is on the federal budget deficit. Debt ceiling, national debt ceiling increases is not a solution. It is a temporary obligations to ease or to pay the obligations that maintained by Congress and the federal government. It is correct, but availabilities gives much more, doubles the gross domestic product several times. It's much bigger than anybody can imagine. It's huge economy. It's not just U.S. economy. It is U.S. economies. City of Los Angeles, a city from 482 municipalities in the state of California, if just city of Los Angeles entitled to more growth on their city budget between $2 trillion to $12 trillion, $6 trillion on average, a number of other cities in a similar situation in the state of California only. What does it mean? It means they have much of growth. They won't have any kind of cuts on their city budget. Instead, they will have much better resources allocation. They will have much better resources management. They will have much better financial management, and they will have much better investment management on the availabilities after these solutions takes places. Let me just refer the effort that expected our Federal Reserve districts, our Treasury Department to maintain, is to connect their objectives with the economy financial structure. The economy, simple definition, it's not just to start with the factors of production, land, labor, organization, and the capital structure, which is their main focus. The capital structure, that is an important part. The Federal Reserve districts and the Federal Treasury Department work on their least growth level on those areas. Financial networks, it means more financial networks, it means more financial tools. I want to get to details. The commodities markets needs to be organized much better. The derivative industry caused world financial system much of loss. Well-known investors, just two American investors lost $40 billion within a year. Only two investors lost. They have a loss between, it's about $40 billion. I don't want to mention those investors, American investor, and there are much other. If you get back to the billionaires, list of the world billionaires, you will notice and you can compare since year 2008 to a present moment. The fluctuations, they're supposed to generate much of growth on availabilities on the more than 226 main and derivative industries. But the question remains, what facilitate the investors and investment direction to those growth? How to invest? How foreign investors, they come running to United States, huge investment opportunities with less cost than any country in the world. And this is the main difference between advanced economy and emerging economies and developing economies. And even advanced economies, there is huge differences between country and another, or geographical area and another. Their availability tells much better or much less than toward those growth. The financial structure needs more attention, not mentioned on his honor, State of the Union, and not mentioned through the entire past addressed states of the Union of the present administration, previous administrations. And none of those areas, growth areas mentioned with more specific details to generate those huge growth amounts. Let me just mention an example. What's the availabilities of the Federal Reserve and Federal Reserve districts at this moment to maintain a financial and monetary policy that generate those kind of growth? It is their main function. The National Economic Council of the President at the White House, they're reading to the economy structure and the economy structure enhancement to connect the economy macroeconomics financial structure to the economy microeconomics financial structure to an increase on gross domestic product after an increase on the financial structure to become more efficient through more financial networks, more financial tools on a number of things. And let me mention on a specific, the financial markets, not market. There are a number of areas relates to the financial markets of the United States economy, and the commodities markets, which include goods and services. What comes from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Federal Home Loan Banks services. And it's supposed to get a number of things to become more efficient, to clear their entire debt with at least $2 trillion surplus on each Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and less gross amount on other, and much more engagement on the what concern factors of production, land. And if you remember, I mentioned the farms products, anything related to farms, it does get back to the Federal Home Loan Banks, and what's the availability through the entire states, what's their obligation to those states and their geographical areas, and what kind of courage they have to businesses related to those areas. Businesses, they need more courage on what relates to the financial structure, the kind of financial structure, to get them to growth with less cost. And this is the difference between advanced economy and other economies, emerging or developing. The administrative cost is just an example. Contract and contracting is just another example. The cost of contract is much far less in the United States than any other advanced economy, than any other emerging economy, than any other developing economies, because too many availabilities, it does decrease the final cost of any at any marginal cost of each unit of good or services, but it does require more attention on the financial structure of the economy. The Federal Reserve districts, and Treasury Department, their part on what concern the factors of production and capital structure on specific, and the main framework of the economy, from the economy structure enhancement, it gets to another level, economy, macroeconomics, which includes the states, towards more work, more efficient financial network, financial tools, towards the economy, microeconomics, financial structure, from the macroeconomic, from the economy, macroeconomics, financial structure, to get the economy, macroeconomics, to towards more efficient financial networks, more efficient financial tools in numbers and in function, to increase the gross domestic product. And from there, the growth cycle, it gets back with the most important, never heard, tax cuts, not tax increases, not deficits, growth. It gets back after growth on gross domestic product, it gets back the growth cycle towards the economy structure with number of things, and I mentioned several times, available in full details to the National Economic Council of the President, the White House, to their owner, Federal Reserve districts, and Treasury Department. It gets back to from growth on gross domestic product to economy structure, with more courage to increase the growth through tax cuts, development, relates to the industrial development, innovation, and a number of other things, relates to the financial networks that needs to be or what existed, very limited existed financial networks, needs to be enhanced with more other financial networks not available. It's a main function of the Federal Reserve districts and the Federal Reserve and Treasury Department, and it gets to other part, the financial tools of those financial networks, national level, state level, cities level, and businesses levels. Talk about any kind of industry, and let me just select, I spoke with, I refer to the financial industry. If we take health care industry, It consists of more than 15 related derivative industries. What's there on the financial authorities to those industries? It needs more effort, more attention. It does not involve federal government on more or to increase the federal government employment or their budget. No, it does not. The existed availabilities can maintain those things. This is part of the. It will be discussed in full details. Where does those solutions start? How does it work? What does it bring? The duration and the growth cycles. How it keeps growing within a framework brings much of things. The most important part to mention, which is the start from the beginning and at the end, the contract and contracting of the economy, the details of the economy to generate much of growth. And it does work on advanced economies similar to the United States or any other emerging economies similar to any of the Latin America economies or Middle East or Asia. It works on even developing countries' economies. Contract and contracting, those 8 countries in West Africa received an effort from European Union and United Nations on $4 billion euro effort to enhance their trade system. It did not bring results after 4 years, from year 2000 to year 2004, because the financial structure of those countries not maintained to work on contract and contracting of their economies. A number of other things, and let me just put very important indicators on United States economy. And I think the State of the Union didn't mention, none of the State of the Union of previous presidents of United States included, the investment position of United States of America, the foreign exchange reserves of United States of America. For almost 2 decades, United States foreign exchange reserve not increased. It's between $140 billion to $160 billion for almost 2 decades. It remains on this gap for almost 2 decades to present moment. With my full respect and to any effort made according to economy, structure and availabilities, city of Los Angeles, just city of Los Angeles, it gets more than $160 billion foreign exchange reserve. And each state entitled to have their own sovereign wealth fund, much bigger than anybody can imagine, and from there they can allocate number of things. The investment funds, they can name any of those. His honor mentioned number of challenges. Any state, they can set their own challenge to improve the quality of life through too many, and which means the standard of living of each age group, from children to seniors. According to each state availabilities and growth availabilities, if state of California has Los Angeles, a number of not less than, it's about 6 cities, has similar situation with Los Angeles, entitled to growth between $2 trillion to $12 trillion, $6 trillion on average. 6 cities, multiply 6 on 6, the average, $36 trillion just on the state of California. Number of state of Texas, they have about 4 cities, a similar situation. State of Florida, they have about not less than about 4 cities. State of New York, they have not less than 4 cities. State of Pennsylvania, about 4 cities. State of Illinois, about 4 cities. State of Arizona, about 4 cities, and too many other states. Each state, they have it's about 400 cities on a similar situation, which means not less than $200 trillion growth increase only through the cities. This is a level of the economy. It's an indirect message to the National Council, the National Economic Council, about the economy structure and how to enhance national, state, cities, and businesses to encourage growth on those geographical areas and their industries. I started to talk about the healthcare industry, and as I mentioned, the financial structure enhancement facilitate those growths. It does not require more employment on federal government or state government or cities government. No, existed employment, and it does require more employment to maintain number of things. Contract and contract needs to be followed. Data information economy of each state needs to be needs more focus. If you remember, each state business solution offer two choices. They can continue on their existed websites, state website or city's website, or they can link it to another website. Includes number of things. It's not available at this moment, but it does facilitate their work. It does relate to data information economy. It does relate to geographical area contract and contracting. It does relate to the commodities market of the geographical area. It does relate to the financial markets of the geographical area. It does relate to their financial networks. It does relate to their more financial tools of those financial networks. It is a pleasure to get to the challenge came on the State of the Union and much more, which relates to the quality of life, to get it much better. Much of growth can be generated to take the standard of living huge growth beyond imagination. Even the new birth children, they could get money from those accounts. This is the advantage of between advanced economy and emerging economy or developing economy. But it needs just more attention, more focus to become a role model for other countries through geographical areas' own availabilities, and through more effort on the world financial system, and it does take to more effort on the Basel Accords with more brief on existing availabilities. A number of things could get much better to direct the financial structures of advanced economies towards more growth, to direct the financial structures on emerging economies towards more growth, to direct the developing economies towards more their financial structure towards more growth, and that it gets to the growth from $78 trillion on world gross domestic product to $400 trillion. It does facilitate the international organizations, related international organizations in these areas. It does facilitate their engagement to apply those necessary solutions on countries' financial structure enhancement, and to become more entitled to receive those growth amount, which does not include the United States. $400 trillion gross increase from 78. It does not include the United States. The United States has much growth than anybody can imagine. I hope it does bring more optimism for immediate growth to what the President of the United States challenge he made on the yesterday, or number of things needs to get done. And growth, it takes much more effort to get results in hours, and it does prevent the final result of growth. There will be no violence. It is very clear the human nature. When it gets to violence, it means limitations. Reflect on behavior, reflect on a number of things, and it does lead to what described by violence. It does not need, nobody can obtain guns or those kind of things unless, or nobody get to them unless, but when human gets on pressure, any level of pressure, it directs to another, to another, to another. It's available on dynamics laws. The third law in dynamics: to any action there is a reaction equal on force and on the opposite direction. But huge growth makes everybody happy, comfortable, much better quality of life. It prevents any kind of violence, which is not necessary. Much of things could get much better, and it is an additional obligations to their owner, the Federal Reserve Districts, and the Treasury Department, and the Chamber of Commerce, and through the entire states, and the National Economic Council. Fewer things needs just their attention, and it becomes available. And I get back to the most important part: 6% growth, 6% service charge on total gross amount at any time, any moment. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Federal Home Loan Banks, they could get much better, involve direct to benefit geographical areas of the entire states with much more growth, not obligations. At this moment, states, they are paying financial obligations of a number of things relates to limitations on the financial structure. The financial services could get much better. It does locate the derivative industry, mortgage investment industry, which relates to the financial industry, to their and the gaps between the present financial services gaps or two cycles that I mentioned several times, which relates to the government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Federal Home Loan Banks, the securities cycle, the collateralized fund obligations. It leads to collateralized debt obligations. It leads to asset-backed securities. It leads to repurchase agreements with less, or but it seems the past 2 decades it does lead to less repurchase agreement, which brings FDIC takeover financial institutions as a clear example, and a number of other things, major cuts on bigger companies or corporations. You just heard about Citigroup, and you heard about ING, their cuts. That's their own. They entitled to much more growth if the financial structure enhanced. They could generate billions of dollars gross, and other companies. Instead of cuts, each financial institutions, they will have new positions, new hiring, between 4 to 6 new work opportunities on each financial institutions, as fast as the financial structure enhancement maintained, as fast as the an increase on the financial networks, an increase on the financial tools. Instead of economy works on only 2% of the total financial tools, it does get much more financial tools ready to detail these areas. I'm very sure the financial authorities, they need to hear more about it. Business is business. Contract, after brief talk, they will be well satisfied. 6% of total gross amount of any gross solutions. Anytime, any moment, their owner, the President of the United States, to get a brief about those solutions. Their owner, Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives, related committees, they could get brief at any time, any moment. Atif Entertainment, State of Virginia, Falls Church, and you can visit the latest edition. Economics is a field of creativity, and their honors the Federal Reserve District, the Treasury Department, which is my field. Finance is just part of the economics. With more effort, a number of things, it gets much better, and unlimited growth takes place through the entire advanced economies, and it does connect emerging economies and developing economies towards more efficient contracts and contracting. It is a pleasure to come to a final conclusion. Growth Solutions is ready anytime, any moment to reflect and much more what concerns the financial system, world financial system, relates to Basel Accords. Fewer effort needs to be maintained on the financial structure of each country to connect them with their availabilities, factors of production, land, labor, organization, capital structure, to put them on a framework through their resources allocations, resources management, financial management, and investment management. And reminder, United States investment position can be improved much better. Huge growth, and the foreign exchange reserves to the availabilities in domestic and foreign range. When the commodities market get enhanced, when the financial markets get enhanced, it does bring much of growth on the foreign exchange reserves, and a comfortable environment for the exchange rate through the entire world. And you just hear the news talks about possibility of conflicts on the exchange rates through the currencies of the leading currencies. It's not contracting with more focus, domestic and foreign range. Each country, their financial tools that can improve their economies and their financial network. It is a pleasure to conclude this brief to His Honor the President of the United States, Democrats, Republicans, Congress, and I hope solution starts as fast as possible to hear huge surpluses, not talk about deficit reduction or cuts, or instead more growth opportunities, between 4 to 6 work opportunities just on each financial institutions of any geographical area, and plus unlimited growth through those 226 main and derivative industries, and towards more efficient Chamber of Commerce of any geographical area. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.